Another season of Forgotten Horror has come to an end, but as Field paraphrases Al Pacino from Scent of a Woman,
we're just getting warmed up!
Spend the next few months with Forgotten Cinema as Season 7 kicks off with movies from all across the decades. We jump to the 70s to talk about The Front Page, starring Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau.
We dive into the 80s with Michael Mann's Thief and the Dennis Quaid Meg Ryan thriller DOA, and then slice into Butler's childhood years, the 90s, with The Last Samurai and The Negotiator.
That's right, Field. You're old. So very, very old.
Shut up, Butler.
Forgotten Cinema, part of the Forgotten Entertainment family.
Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Elise.
Hosts of Crackin' One Open with Mike and Elise.
A podcast about brews, news, and pop culture reviews.
Every Friday, we choose a new craft beer from a different brewery and talk about
the history of the beer,
what's in it,
how it was made,
the history of the brewery,
along with tasting notes and more fun facts.
After that, come chill with us as we bring you the latest in pop culture news and reviews.
So check out Crackin' One Open, part of the Forgotten Entertainment family.
Hi, I'm Mike Field.
I'm Pat Whalen.
Pat is a lifelong comic book geek.
And Mike is a filmmaker and storyteller.
So naturally, a bulk of our conversations surround the world of the Marvel movies. Some consider the MCU one of the greatest achievements in modern-day filmmaking, and others just think they're comic book movies. Each episode will tackle one film and discuss the differences between the comic book and what's on screen. We'll explore the growth of the Marvel Cinematic Universe from its inception to present day and beyond, and have a little fun along the way. You may not have asked for it, you certainly don't need it, but you'll be happy we're here. We think. This is yet another MCU podcast. All right, Pat, we're back for our last bonus episode before we kick off our Phase 3 Part 2 with the Avengers Infinity War. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing, Mike?
I am doing well. That's about it. I am doing well.
Happy Thanksgiving. We are recording right around Thanksgiving right now.
We are recording the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Yes, indeed. So you will not be listening to this until 2021. So happy 2021. Hopefully it's a little better than 2020, but doubtful. You gotta laugh or you'll cry. Anyways, so we are going to be doing, what's funny is that I just learned of this term about 5 minutes before we started this bonus phase, because I was like, Pat, what are we calling this episode? And he goes, Marvel Nights. And I was like, I don't understand what that means. So I don't know, maybe you should explain it real quick, because this is what we're going to be talking about, the shows that were on Netflix. We're talking Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, and Luke Cage. And I guess, and Defenders, technically.
And the Defenders, yeah.
But why don't you explain for people that maybe like me don't understand?
Yeah, so the Marvel Knights was a rebranding of a bunch of characters, late 90s, early 2000s. Daredevil, Black Panther was included, a couple of these street level characters, and they were defending New York. And it was just kind of a revisiting of them, just a nice fresh relaunch to the characters. A little grittier, a little darker than probably what we had been used to for a little while. So the term Marvel Knights is kind of used to refer to these Netflix heroes, which are a little bit more street level, a little bit more gritty than what we see on the theater screens.
Gotcha. What are theater screens, Pat? Nobody goes to theaters anymore.
So an ancient relic of the past.
So like I said, we're going to talk about the 5 shows, well, the 4 shows and then the one mini series or limited series as they call them now, with the Defenders. I want to give you a little bit of my background in terms of these shows and where I left off in them. I don't think I've finished. The only series I finished was Jessica Jones. So I've seen the first 2 seasons of Jessica Jones.
You know there was a 3rd season.
Then I guess I have not finished this season. Is the 3rd season of Jessica Jones when her friend starts becoming that cheetah tiger thing character?
Hellcat?
I don't know. Yes. When she starts flipping
no,
things.
I think
that's the 2nd season.
I think that's the 2nd season.
I have no idea how long I got with Jessica Jones. Okay, so I know I didn't finish Daredevil. I know I didn't.
3rd season of Daredevil is really good.
Oh, come on.
The 2nd one's really bad. The 3rd season.
I will
really
tell you
good.
my problems with some of these shows.
All right, we'll get through it.
I did not finish Daredevil. I did not finish Jessica Jones. I refused to finish Iron Fist. I could not finish Luke Cage. I did watch The Defenders.
Did you know there were 2 seasons of Punisher?
Oh, I forgot about The Punisher. I did. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't finish the 2nd season of Punisher, and I wanted to. I think I was just so soured on the fact that it got canceled. And that's a lot of these, because they announced that, hey, we're not doing them anymore. These shows are canceled. It's like, well, I don't want to finish it up. Well, it was like so I should go back to the Punisher. And again, I forgot about the Punisher.
Mike's
Dear
not a
Lord.
completionist.
I try to be, but like when there's so much stuff out there. Okay, where do you want to start off?
We could start off wherever you want. I could give some background. I'll give the fun facts in this one.
Okay.
And so to start from the beginning, this was announced as a partnership between Marvel, Disney, and Netflix back in 2013. So at the time, it was like they both needed each other, as you know, the Netflix needed Marvel as much as Marvel needed Netflix, so that they had a landing spot and a launching spot for these shows. So the first one was Daredevil, which premiered in April 2015. Jessica Jones followed in November 2015, and then there were additional series later on through 2016, 17, and then they finished the final season in 2019. The first four characters, so Daredevil, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and Jessica Jones, came together in an Avengers type movie called The Defenders. That was, meant to be, all their series were leading up to this piece, and they used the character of Claire Temple, the night nurse who we met in we talked about in Doctor Strange, as the Nick Fury kind of piece, or the Phil Coulson piece.
Right. No, not Nick Fury.
Yeah, the Phil Coulson piece that was tying it all together. The shows were ushered through development by Jeff Loeb. He was the head of Marvel Television at the time. We've talked about Jeff Loeb in the past. He was a comic book writer on a number of things, specifically in the recommended reading that we've provided. The color series, so the Captain America white, the Hulk gray, the Spider-Man blue, Daredevil yellow. He's written Batman, Superman. He's Spider-Man. He's been all over the place, but he's also comes from the world of genre TV, and that's Smallville and Lost. Now we could get into the problems, because I think that's part of the problem is the pedigree that Jeff Loeb comes from.
Okay.
And all of the series except for Defenders, and I think maybe it was a Luke Cage or an Iron Fist series, were 13 episodes.
Yes.
And they were 13-hour-long episodes for the most part. And there was a lot of filler.
Exactly.
And there was a lot of stuff where they just could have gotten to the point.
They had a 8-episode plot crammed into 13 episodes almost. And Defenders is 8 episodes, I think.
Defenders 8 episodes.
Which is probably why it worked a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
What I liked when Daredevil came out, because that was the first one, I enjoyed the fact that they referenced the stuff that happened in the movie. So the incident, they call it, which I was okay. I'm into that. I like that it's not separate. It's part of the universe. I will say that, his insistence on saying that Hell's Kitchen is anything bigger than a few blocks, and it's my city, Hell's Kitchen. It's not a city.
it's like 29th and 34th or something.
Not a city. It's like, you got to calm down with that. That bugged me.
It's only on the west side.
Yeah.
For those that aren't familiar with New York City, it's maybe what?
You said
23rd Street through 33rd, 32nd Street. It goes from Chelsea to maybe Madison Square Garden.
It's not its own city
on the west side of town.
He refers to it like it's his own town, and it's not a town. It's just a section of New York.
Yeah. It's not even a borough. Like Luke Cage has Harlem. That's a borough.
Yes.
That's much bigger.
Yes.
And there's bigger problems and more political problems, and they get into that. But Daredevil doesn't have a city.
No. But problem with Daredevil is that I don't like Foggy. And I don't like what was the woman's
Karen Page.
I don't like their subplots. I don't care about, because what ends up happening in the second season, and I don't even remember if I watched the third. Like I think I did. You said there's 4?
3.
I might have watched some of 3. Suddenly she goes from being a secretary. Is that right? Is that where she starts?
She was
off?
the administrator to. I don't even remember how she lost her first job in the first place.
The guy dies. The guy's the bad guy or something, or they kill him or something.
Oh, right.
Like that.
And then she's out of a job somehow.
Right.
And then she finds these two.
She goes
down in their luck.
She
lawyers.
goes basically from she's going to be their administrative assistant.
Yep.
For like maybe a few months, she turns it into some investigative reporter at some newspaper, like
the Daily Bugle.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and I didn't care about her solving any kind of. I don't care about any of that. Don't care about Foggy whining all the time. Like the supporting characters in Daredevil, I didn't want to watch. I'd rather just watch Daredevil. I'd rather watch Matt Murdock try to figure out what he's trying to do with his life and everything. I enjoyed how they showed how he could see the world. Everything was on fire. I thought that was, although I do like it better in the movie.
The Ben Affleck one, yeah.
With the sound wave. I think that's done a little bit.
Because it always talked about in the comics that it's a little bit more echo type location, like, how does he do this?
It makes more sense in that one. And I like the way they did it in the movie, but I liked it in this TV show as well. So that was where I was on Daredevil. With Jessica Jones, I'll give you 2 words. The only reason I liked the first season was David Tennant. He's the best thing about. He's probably the best thing that's in the entire 5-6 shows that we got going on here.
Yes, and I was watching Jessica Jones at the same time I was watching the BBC Broadchurch.
That's a great show.
It is a great show. Just watch that. If you want David Tennant and you still want a depressing show, watch Broadchurch instead, because it's a better watch and David Tennant's more likable.
You could also watch him as Doctor Who.
Let's not get crazy here, man.
Whoa. Hold on. I don't want to. I am not alienating the,
I'm kidding.
the Doctor fans.
I'm kidding.
Okay?
I'm kidding.
He is the best Doctor. I said it.
I
said it. Well, watch
I haven't
it,
seen
Pat.
much since
You're
Christopher
a nerd.
Eccleston.
You're a nerd. Watch it.
I saw Christopher Eccleston. That was the only one I saw before he became the Dark Elf Malekith.
Way to bring it back to Marvel. So Jessica Jones, she was kind of the same in terms of her attitude and maybe her growth or lack of growth of her character, if that makes yeah.
She starts at a hard drinking kind of wants to hit everything, and she ends as a hard drinking wants to hit everything.
Right. And I know that they introduced Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, and the way they introduced Luke Cage with his wife, and the problem I had with Luke, the couple problems I had with Luke Cage was that they kind of erased that
in his series.
And they make the wife the bad guy, right? Like she was lying.
No, she helped him get out of the prison.
They make her, but they make her aligned with the guy that he's up against or something like that.
That's right.
Like I remember not liking the fact that they completely change kind of his origin a little bit within the show, not within the comic.
Mm-hmm.
And they rewrite it for his show, and I didn't like it because I was like, that's not the established.
I don't like that. If you're establishing a tied-in universe, you should keep the origins you've already provided. You got to keep the in-universe mythology as consistent as possible.
The other problem with Luke Cage was there was way too much focus and emphasis on the bad guys, on Alfre Woodard and Mahershala Ali, which they were great. They were fantastic, and but it's not their show. And you know what I mean?
And then when they killed off, what's his face in the last episode of the second last episode, that's when the final episode goes off the rails because it goes
in the first season.
Okay, because it goes into strictly comic book territory, and that's not a bad thing. But when your whole show is 12 episodes of like really good kind of political drama with some superhero pieces in it, and it's community activism and it's all that stuff,
which is great.
It's great. It's a really good story.
It's a nice change of pace from the other two that we've just seen. Yeah.
And then they go into this like really superhero territory,
and he wears that stupid outfit.
He wears the outfit in the last episode. It just doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. And like I said, they focus way too much on the quote unquote bad guys in that show and any other show, if it was a show like Breaking Bad where we're focusing, it's an anti-hero show, we're focusing on that'd be fantastic. But they're giving so much attention and so much preferential treatment to the lead character, Luke Cage, that he kind of conflicted in watching it.
Yeah. And I'll give the comparison because it's the episode we have coming up and kind of tease it with Infinity War. They make Thanos essentially the protagonist in the movie. Like we're following him through the movie. We understand his motivations. He gets the stones. He takes Gamora to Vormir. He goes. It's his story. And so if we're still focusing on the villain. We all as viewers know he's the villain, but we do that because we also understand who Tony is, who Captain America is. We've already gotten their stories. In this one, they're trying to provide the story of Luke Cage, but making the villains the focus. Right. And which, pick a lane.
Yeah.
Is the nicest way I can say that.
And then we get to Iron Fist. Actually, was Iron Fist before Punisher or after?
Iron Fist was before the Defenders. So I believe it went Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Daredevil 2, then Luke Cage, because they fast-tracked Daredevil 2 after the success of season 1.
Yeah.
Luke Cage, then Iron Fist, which led directly into the Defenders.
Okay, so let's talk about Iron Fist. I do not like this show.
Let's not talk about Iron Fist.
I do not like this show at all. I'm sorry. I don't like it. And I always bring this up, and I did it before the thing. Second episode in, we meet Danny Rand comes back, and he's talking about how they've come back, and his fortune is been given away, or it's
tied up.
It's
Rand International company.
And he's like, I don't care about money. I don't care about my name. I'm one with the world and all that stuff. He does all that.
He's Danny Rand, Immortal Iron Fist, protector of Kun Lun.
He does all that. He doesn't care. And then not 10 minutes later in the movie, and this isn't a joke, 10 minutes later in the movie, he's being dragged out of his building yelling, I'm Danny Rand. That's my name. It's my name. Do you know who I am? That's my money. I'm not exaggerating. Like, that's what happens.
Yeah.
And I'm watching the show and I'm like, what the, didn't you just say you didn't care? What the heck is going on? I hate it. I did not like Iron Fist. I did not like it at all. So you can talk whatever you want about Iron Fist. I hate it.
No, I don't. Iron Fist is bad. Iron Fist is not a good story. Iron Fist is a good character, and they did a lot of cool things with him in recent years. Ed Brubaker came in, Matt Fraction came in. They really told the story of not only Iron Fist, but the mythology of Iron Fist. The show, we don't need to argue whether they deserve it or not, but they got some slack for casting a white guy as Danny Rand,
right.
In this primarily martial arts, but he is, but that is the character. He was,
But here's the thing with the show. It's all about martial arts and all about, I know the enemy of the hand, which we can talk about real quick, but it's also like I'm watching a subplot from Billions in the show. You know what I mean? Like it's like a complete
there's two different shows.
Wall Street drama. And I'm like, what? I don't care about this.
And it does. There are some moments like that in the comics, in the Iron Fist comics. It plays better, much better,
right?
Because you have a longer time to build it out. You have some understanding of the Marvel world. I mean, Danny Rand is that. His parents died in a plane crash. He found his way into the city, and he was trained there, and he was an outsider. So it was very similar, and they've already kind of they did that dynamic with Doctor Strange, where they had, this outsider come and train with people who were, this is more their destiny type of thing.
Right.
And so we've seen that a little bit already. It is a product of when these comics were coming out, and, there was white heroes, and that's what it was. There wasn't a lot of diversity, but it was also, they were taking that trope of, probably white savior a little bit,
of course,
but this is who the character was. And if you you cast somebody different, you'd have to change the entire story of it, which probably would have helped it.
Right.
But that's not what they were trying to do. But yeah, it was bad. Like you said, it's Billions plus a Bruce Lee movie, a bad Bruce Lee movie.
Yeah, not a good one. Not even Bruce Lee, like somebody who was trying to be Bruce Lee.
Yeah. And none of the characters are likable. There's no like character you latch onto and was like, oh yeah, I want to see what they do.
I can't remember his mentor or his teacher girlfriend, what her name was, but the fact that she was fighting, like she was doing street level fights.
Oh,
I love this.
Colleen Wing. She's one of the two. She pairs up with Misty Knight, who we see.
Right.
Is it Luke Cage? I think it's Luke Cage.
No, don't they? Yeah, because she
loses her arm.
You know what? I totally forgot about that character. Oh, yeah.
That's a whole comic thing. She loses her arm.
I know. And she has this super arm and she can punch things. But isn't she in the second season of Iron Fist?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I think she is.
Luke Cage, then she bummed her way over.
Well, there's a lot of crossover between Iron Fist and Luke Cage.
Yes. Yeah. And the reason for that is, I think in the 70s and later on, but in the 70s it started, they were known as the Heroes for Hire. So Luke Cage, aka Power Man, was teaming up with Iron Fist. So it was this float like a butterfly, sting like a bee type of, the strong guy versus the martial art, with the martial art, not versus with them. And they teamed up and they were private investigator, superhero type guys who would solve crimes in their neighborhoods.
Now, I know that Luke Cage, his backstory within the comic is that he was a slave that got free, that freed himself, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think that, and obviously they can't do that now in 2018 or 2017, whenever this came out, because it's updated and he leaves not a prison.
Well, he was in prison, but he was being experimented on, right?
Right. It's like a prison. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But he was in prison for killing his wife. Is that what it was? They framed him because his wife dies, and didn't they frame him or something like that?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what I wanted to ask was, do you think that we missed something with not doing the original storyline? I know you can't because you'd have to put it in the past, but do you think we missed something there with that character? Like a lost opportunity to kind of maybe.
There was a lot of social commentary in the episode anyway.
Sure.
And I think it was more relevant because it was, false imprisonment or the justice system with black men.
Yeah.
I think that's what they were trying to do.
Yeah, I got you. I'm just
asking
the question.
Yeah, no, I don't think they lose anything. I think they didn't gain anything because they didn't push it farther enough. Mm-hmm. And I think that comes, from the the pedigree of where this show came from, and that's people who know ABC, CBS, NBC genre television, which is, your 13 episodes, your 22 episodes. We're going to do a mystery of the week with one big overarching villain, and we'll scratch the surface maybe on some political commentary, one episode a season once we get to 100 episodes, because we know we made it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem with this series as a whole is they're on Netflix. They could say whatever they want. They could do whatever they want, and they didn't, because the people behind it were so tied into the way of doing things in TV.
The other thing that Luke Cage is different from the others is that he does not hide his abilities or does not try to. Like, not even Danny Rand does too either, right? He's just kind of...
I don't know what he does.
Yeah. Let's not care. But
anybody he meets, Danny Rand says, "I'm the Immortal Iron Fist."
True. But you don't think he's a superhero. You just think he's some guy that knows martial arts.
Yeah. He's a whack job.
Luke Cage he's all about, like, he doesn't hide it,
right?
But like Daredevil does, and I know that Jessica Jones, while she does because she's afraid of getting,
she doesn't flaunt it.
Yeah, but she's also like, there's that fear in that show that she's going to get taken away and experimented on for some reason, but not in any of the other shows.
Even though Luke Cage is the one that was taken away and experimented.
I know. And then you have, and also the Punisher doesn't care about anything. I like the Punisher. I love the first season of Punisher, and I didn't get through the second season primarily just because, like I said, stuff came up and I couldn't get to it, but maybe because the first season was so good and it felt like it was done. And then they came back with a second. Like, he is so good as the Punisher, John Bernthal, that if they made a movie, he is the one you cast. That's how good he is in that show.
I think they had excellent casting with Charlie Cox. Was that his name?
Yeah.
Charlie Cox is and Matt Murdock.
Do you remember him in Boardwalk Empire?
Not really. I didn't watch much of Boardwalk Empire.
You really should. But he plays because he's Irish. He plays an Irish. He's one of the gang that's brought over to protect like Nucky's wife.
Okay.
And they end up having an affair.
Makes sense.
He's really good though.
I think Charlie Cox is. I mean, we only have two Daredevils right now. It's him and Ben Affleck, and he far surpasses Ben Affleck.
Yeah, but that's not Ben Affleck's fault.
No, it's not. But I think Charlie Cox played Matt Murdock, Daredevil, fantastic.
Right.
Kristen Ritter as Jessica Jones is another great choice.
Good.
Mike Coulter as
with the exception of the Iron Fist.
Yeah,
I don't have any problem with any of the casting.
Finn Jones just can't act. That's the problem.
Listen, I'm not saying that. What if we want to work with Finn Jones again?
There was an acting coach that was hired for him on the set.
Whoops. All right, never mind. But regardless, I had no problem with the casting. My problem is not with the actors. My problem is with the writing. My problem is with the story development. Like you said, you talked about Jeff Loeb and my problem. Let me just real quickly tell you my problem with Lost. If you watch a movie and you love the beginning of the movie and you love the end of the movie, but the middle of the movie is terrible, are you going to tell me that's a good movie? Because that's what Lost is. Lost has a great opening, and it was event television. I get it. It has a great opening. They end it strong, but everything in the middle is just like you're wandering out somewhere trying to figure out stuff.
So let me ask you this: if Lost, using that as an example, was on, let's say, HBO, and the first season of Lost ran 13 episodes,
sure.
The next season of Lost ran maybe 13. Then we went a couple in the middle that were 8 to 10. And then they concluded it on like an 8-episode season. Would that have been better?
It would have been better because it would have forced them to cut out extraneous stuff and get right to the meat of what the story is. You can see, go watch Breaking Bad, go watch Mad Men, go watch Sopranos, go watch these 6 Feet Under, The Shield, these shows that are required to come with a smaller season of order of episodes, and they're forced to tell a story that is clear cut and not, they can have subplots, but they can't go too far. And that's those shows, when they're done well, that's why those shows are like, oh my God, this show's fantastic. Right. But when you have a show like Lost that has to be 24 episodes, you have to fill it. I get it.
I think the problem with this one is each season, aside from one, I believe, and the Defenders, not excluding the Defenders, each season is 13 episodes.
Right.
They don't have enough content because of how they drag out the single villain. So Jessica Jones is all about David Tennant as the Purple Man.
Yes.
That's the entire series. You cannot stretch that out.
Killing David Tennant off in that episode 9, I think they killed him, or 10.
10 or not,
was the worst thing they could have ever done. They should have never killed him off.
But that's the problem. Like, now you have, but that's where you end that season.
That should be the last episode.
That should be the last episode.
Or the second to last, where I know that like a lot of times they'll have
you
the action.
come back, you deal with the ramifications.
Right, which is fine.
Yeah. That's my struggle with Jessica Jones season 1 is they dragged it on for 3 more episodes.
Right.
After your villain was defeated.
Yeah.
The whole crux of your show that season was to defeat David Tennant.
Yeah.
You did that.
And he is such a scary character.
Yeah,
he is such a scary bad guy because he just makes people do things bad to themselves, to other people, and it's like he doesn't care.
No.
And I love it because it's like I love it. It's a villain that's an actual villain that doesn't you don't have to, you're not humanizing him or anything like that. He is a straight up jerk, a straight up
Sociopath.
villain bad. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, serial killer.
And it's great. He plays it well.
Yeah.
So because we want to wrap this up. We can't talk forever. Do you like the Defenders when they got together and
it was okay
because the Hand becomes their overarching enemy,
right? And that's not the case for Jessica Jones or Luke Cage.
Right.
It's not really the case for Iron Fist either. That's a Daredevil villain. That's like one of Daredevil's biggest antagonists is the Hand and the Hand organization and those that lead it. To tie everybody else in and make them the villain is a little, I don't know. It's a little weird. To make the other characters care about this is difficult. And I think that's the problem they ran into. I don't like what they did with Elektra. So Elektra was a big character in Daredevil lore. She was always involved in the Hand. We see her in the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie, which they basically...
Her movie's terrible.
It's terrible because they take 4 or 5 big storylines from the Daredevil comics and jam it into 2 hours.
Right. Into her movie? Into Elektra's movie?
No, I'm talking the Daredevil movie.
Yeah, I know. I'm talking about the Elektra movie. Was
I
awful.
don't know. Yeah, that was just bad. I think that's part of it is, they just didn't have a villain that everybody cared about. And it was, I guess maybe it would have taken away from some of the villains in Luke Cage if you did it this way, that they were working with the Hand more, because it would have taken, it would have made them less of a threat if they were like the middle level baddie.
Sure.
So I don't know if that's the way to do it. Yeah, I think it was fine. The miniseries is fine.
It's only 8 episodes.
Yeah, I think they probably could have cut it to 6, but that's the problem with all these
you
shows.
Also had Sigourney Weaver was in that. She was also, they had her in there.
Yep.
If you haven't seen them, you should, maybe go back to them. It's tough because you keep watching stuff that that doesn't end the way they want it to end.
Right.
And it got canceled too early and they couldn't do what they want. And so you don't like watching stuff that didn't complete. It's like,
yeah. And it's also like, if you're a Daredevil fan, you could go pick up Daredevil season 1 and for the most part, Daredevil season 3 without really needing to know the rest of the Defenders story.
Right.
You go watch season 2, it's tied in with Elektra. It's tied in with Punisher. Like this is another example where they could have just done the Punisher story, made it those 6 episodes. I think it was like the first 6 or 7 episodes that goes from his introduction to him on trial. That could have been the season, but instead they needed to force in the Elektra stuff.
They're all even the Punisher stuff though is his season. His first season's great, but his first season got filler in it as well.
Yeah, I think for the most part, there's a lot of good moments in these shows, just like there's a lot of good movie moments in the Marvel movies themselves.
Yeah,
there's just sometimes a little bit more of that studio edict that's coming down and saying we need X, Y, and Z. We need you to connect it this way. We need it this long. We need to fill time. And, part of it, I think, was I know there was an agreement with the city of New York and the state of New York for filming. So New York City obviously is a huge place to film, a lot of tax credits, a great film office, both in the state and in the city that encourages this stuff. And so they made one of the biggest deals with the city for a block of shows. And they produced like 161 episodes through these,
and that employs a lot of people.
And
especially this is probably towards the tail end when Law and Order left. So when Law and Order was stopped, not SVU, but Law and Order, the original show was on the air for like, it's like
years.
It's got like over 400 episodes. So yeah, for a while. But that show was like a steady job for a lot of people that worked in the businesses where some people cut their teeth. I want to get into it. Get on Law and Order. That show employed a lot of people in New York City. When Law and Order left, that was a big hole they needed to fill, and they still need to fill. And quite frankly, it should have never left. I don't understand why we did this, NBC. But regardless, it was
the ratings are down. Then recast. You've done that before.
Exactly. It was ridiculous. There was no reason to. I love Criminal Intent, but I know that's neither here nor there. But anyway.
Since we're on cinematic universes and Law and Order, what I didn't like was Anthony Anderson played a role in SVU years ago as a partner to, I think, Stabler.
Yeah.
When Mariska Hargitay was away, they had her. And he played a partner to him on like a 2-episode one. Then he had that other partner who is I think Irish woman, Danny or something.
Mm-hmm.
Then he comes back in Original Recipe. He plays a different character. This doesn't make any sense.
Well, do you know that Jerry Orbach was so before Jerry Orbach became Lenny Briscoe, he was a defense attorney in the first season.
I did know that. Yeah,
which
he
is
was
awesome.
also supposed to get his own show, and then he.
What is happening here, Pat? Where
Yet another Law and Order podcast.
I would do that in a second.
No, I think the other one that I just wanted to touch on with this, and probably the reason many fans maybe lost interest was because, and you hit on it when they referred to it as the incident, and Karen Page, when she's going through all the paperwork and the old papers at Daily Bugle, finally finds the Battle of New York paper.
It's not the Daily Bugle.
It's not the Daily Bugle?
No, it's something else.
Oh, it should have been the Daily Bugle.
Okay, but it's not. It's something else.
Okay. Anyway, it should have been the Daily Bugle. My point being, they reference it early, and then they stop referencing it. And we were promised as fans that this would tie in to the greater MCU. Then we hear that Marvel has announced Civil War. And in the Civil War comics, as we talked about in the episode, it's filled with thousands of heroes. There's a lot of the street level heroes that are getting picked up that are violating the Superhero Registration Act. And then instead of tying in these characters, which I think we all, for the most part, know which side they would stand on, except for who knows what Danny Rand. But like the Punisher has a huge role in the Civil War comics. In this, they go and do the movie and it's just 9 guys in a parking lot.
Yeah.
And then when you see that there's no tie-in, there's no ramifications, there's no battle of Sokovia Accords or anything that comes back into the Netflix ones, you're just like, this is not what you told me.
Yeah.
You told me that this was going to tie in.
That's a good point.
And it ties in the same way that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. ties in, which is like some ancillary reference every 20 episodes.
So I would be remiss because I did not mention it, and that's my bad. I talked about how I love David Tennant and Jessica Jones, but I also loved Vincent D'Onofrio as Wilson Fisk or Kingpin in the first season of Daredevil. He comes back in the 3rd season. Right?
He's in the 2nd season.
Yeah,
he's in prison with.
But it's only like one episode. Yeah. So he was equally just as good in the first season. So like when you go from Daredevil and then you go back to the Fisk stuff, both of that stuff was intriguing.
Yes.
So I should say that I did appreciate him as well. It was the New York Bulletin, not the New York.
Okay.
So I just want to throw that out there in terms of what paper that Karen for some reason got the top investigative.
Oh, you know what?
job.
I wonder if they did have the rights to the Daily Bugle because that's a Spider-Man.
I know
paper.
that Daredevil's a Spider-Man thing, right? Like they're connected.
They connect.
Yeah,
They're in the
right.
city.
Yeah.
Spider-Man swings all through Manhattan. Daredevil patrols 12 blocks.
Spidey, this is Hell's Kitchen. This is my town.
This is my town.
This is my town. All right.
Bro's swinging down the West Side Highway. It's like, whoa.
Well, we should wrap it up because this is getting long and this is supposed to be a bonus phase. So, I guess I watch them if you want, or I don't know. I mean, we could go on forever.
No, go
with
revisit
this.
it.
Yeah,
I think it's worth a revisit. I think it's worth picking and choosing which characters you probably like best.
They're never going to come back, which is too bad. But I would have been okay if they came back for a final season where they just had them all together again.
Yeah,
but they'll never come back. I know they talk about Charlie Cox coming back as Daredevil in the movie if it ever comes out, and obviously John Bernthal as the Punisher if it ever does that. But other than that, I think this is probably it for them, which is too bad. But hey, it happens.
Yeah, Netflix needed them, Disney needed them, and then now neither of them need each other. So they're just going to go their separate ways.
So this is the end of our bonus phase episode about the Marvel Knights or the Netflix shows. We will return next week as we kick off Phase 3 Part 2 with Avengers Infinity War. The Infinity Saga is coming to an end, or it's the beginning of the end, and we are going to be there with it. Do you have anything to add?
No, that's it. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, we will see you next week.